and welcome to episode 13 of the Cedar Arrows Podcast. My name is Rebecca. I am coming to you from a small homestead in Alabama, and you can find me on the internet, on Instagram and Ravelry as Happy Homemaker 05. I am a Bible-believing Christian, a military wife, homeschooling mom of 6, and a knitter and reader and tea drinker and lover of all things cozy and homey and beautiful. I am thrilled that you're here with me today, and I'm looking forward to catching up a little bit. Today is October 18th. It's a beautiful, sunny, crisp autumn day here, and right now I'm working on a sock, which I'll tell you more about later. But I'm just thrilled to be here and ready to catch up and talk knitting with all of you. This is primarily a knitting podcast. I do talk sometimes about some of those other things I just mentioned because it is also interwoven in my life, but mostly I'll be talking about knitting. So grab your project and let's dig in. Actually, I think first I will start this time, mix it up a little bit, and start with just some chit chat about what's been going on around here lately. Today, my girls and I are getting ready to go to a Green Gables party. We have a friend here in the area who has 3 daughters, and they also homeschool. And every October, they host a Green Gables party where we have tea and we eat snacks and watch Anne of Green Gables and, as time allows, Anne of Avonlea. So the girls are in the kitchen right now baking, getting ready for that. And the boys are spending the day with my parents. So the house is relatively quiet, but if you hear the occasional clatter or crash, that's the girls in the kitchen. So a lot has happened in the last, I think it's been 5 weeks since I recorded. A lot's been going on for our family and for the whole Southwest region of the states. It's been kind of a heavy few weeks, kind of a hard few weeks, but I am thankful for sunshine and for, a good day today. First of all, I mentioned last time that our dog had been bitten by a snake and that she was doing very well. And while that wound on her leg did heal very well, which I'm kind of proud about because it was very hard to keep her clean and get her to leave it alone. So I'm still patting myself on the back for that. But while the wound on her leg did heal very nicely, apparently the snake that got her was a venomous snake, and that caused damage to her kidneys. So just last time I recorded, I was saying how well she was doing and how thankful we were that she was doing so well. And then just a few days later, she ended up back at the vet and was diagnosed with kidney failure. So at that point, we decided to bring her home and make her comfortable and just do what we could and enjoy our last bit of time with her. So she lived 4 more days after that and was still, for the most part, her spunky self right up until the end. But we did lose her almost a month ago. So that has been very, very difficult, very heavy. And if you follow me on, excuse me, if you follow me on social media, you already know this. You probably have already seen that she did die. But I have received so many messages and comments from so many of you, and that has been so comforting. She was with us for nearly 11 years. She lived here most of her life. We got her as a new puppy, and she was my shadow all the time. She was in here every time I recorded a podcast because if I tried to close her out, she would be on the other side of the door whining and crying. So while you probably didn't see her much, you probably have heard her on the podcast. She would often lay on the love seat across from me or even curl up underneath the chair I'm sitting in. And she was just a very very much an everyday, every moment part of life for all of us, and specifically me. Um, but a loss of a pet is a very personal thing and really only affects the people in the household for the most part. And so to be able to be vulnerable with all of you and share our grief as we've gone through that and receive so much understanding and so much love from so many of you has been really, really very nice and very comforting. So thank you for that. And thank you for your concern as she was sick and just being there with us through the ups and downs. So she was sick for about a month. It took us a little while to figure out what was going on, and she actually had more than one thing going on. But from the time that we took her to the vet for the first time, this, with all of this, until she died was only about a month. So, a large part of my brain was taken up with caring for her and worrying about her and trying to figure out what to do for her. And then in the midst of all of that, we were getting ready for a big family trip that we take every autumn. So she died on a Sunday, and we had planned to leave home that following Friday for this big family camping trip. I've mentioned before, probably several times, that our family is involved in a family camp. It's kind of a retreat for families who are members of the Church of Christ and homeschool their children. My husband and I met there as young children several years ago. Our families have been friends for many years through that camp. We both grew up going there. Our kids have grown up going to that camp, and now, as of the last 3 years, my husband and I are on the board of directors for this camp. It takes place in North Carolina every autumn, and it was supposed to begin at the very, very end of September and be most of the first week of October. So our dog died on Sunday, and we poured all of our attention and energy into preparing for this trip to leave on Friday for the camp to begin the following Sunday. But that week was the week that Hurricane Helene hit. And so as we were preparing, we knew that the area we were going to be camping in was supposed to be very rainy. So we're all kind of coming up with contingency plans, but still planning on going until the storm hit, and it was so much worse than was anticipated. So as we're watching the news and we're seeing how bad it really is, it turns out we couldn't have physically even gotten there, but also we were concerned. We didn't want to be trying to come in and have fun and taking resources from people in the area who really needed them. So the board of directors made the decision, or the decision was really made for us, to cancel our week of our retreat. That was a very hard, heartbreaking thing. And so, that was we're trying to navigate ourselves a lot of big emotions that week, and also helping the children to navigate those big emotions, and trying to keep perspective that while it's okay for us to be sad and disappointed because this is a real highlight of our year, there are so many people who are going through so much harder situations because of this storm. So that was a lot. a lot of damage, a lot of loss in that area, in an area that we care about and people that we care about. So that's just been very heavy for the Southeast, but also for the country, as we've seen all of the devastation from that awful, awful hurricane and how far reaching that was. So, like I said, just it's just been a heavy few weeks. As a blessing that came from all of that, several of our closest friends, oldest friends, also attend this camp. And as soon as people knew that our camp was going to be canceled, they started making other plans. And so we had a family of 6 that came and stayed with us for the week. That couple also grew up going to this camp, and so all 4 of us have been friends since we were children, and our children have been raised more as cousins, very, very close friends. And so they came and stayed at our house for a week. We had other overnight guests that were here for 2 or 3 nights as part of that week. So the most we had at any one point was 12, in addition to the 8 of us who live here. So it was full and it was wonderful. It was a real boost after having had those other things happen. It was a real blessing to be able to gather in smaller groups and have people in our home, since we couldn't be all together at our camp like we would have preferred. We had the boys camping out in the yard in tents, and some of the girls did part of the time as well. We had kids on the floor in here inside, and every bed in the house was occupied. It was really special. And I think that's a really special thing to notice when you suffer a personal tragedy or a larger scale, community tragedy, to look for the blessings and look for the way that people tend to pivot, and whether they're helping others or just making do the best they can with their own situation, the way that we do tend to just, okay, well, now what are we doing next? I think that's a real blessing. So like I said, we were very disappointed not to be able to have our camp, and there were a lot of big emotions surrounding that, but it also helped just to keep perspective that there are so much bigger and worse things than us not getting to have fun that week. So our thoughts and prayers have definitely been with those people who have lost homes and loved ones and who have suffered so much devastation. I'll say I usually try to look at the camera, look at a person when you're talking to them, look at the camera when you're talking to it. But I knit one too many rows in this repeat, and I'm taking out a row as I talk to you. So I hope that's not too distracting. I know for me personally, when I'm watching a podcast, I'm usually knitting, so I'm not really watching, I'm listening. So I do try to look at the camera, but sometimes I have to look at my hands. Let me see what else has been going on. So we decided to incubate a dozen eggs and try to raise some new chicks. It's been a couple of years since we've raised new ones, and we live in the country and our chickens free range, and we do lose them from time to time, and so we try to always have some young ones coming up to keep the flock going. So we timed it so that they would be hatching right around the time we were supposed to be coming home from our trip. And then we had a lot of people in the house that week instead of being away from home. And everybody was so interested in the incubator and the process. So that was fun. But we were looking forward to having chicks in the house. And you know what they say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Usually we have pretty good luck. We usually tend to get like 9 to 11 from the dozen. The incubator holds 12. This time we hatched one singular chick. And I don't know how much you know about chickens, but they tend to be flock animals. So this one singular chick has been in a large brooder box in our schoolroom. That's how we do it. But it is a large enough box for 12 young chicks, and it is in there all by itself. So it is, I'm afraid it's going to be the most spoiled chicken that we've ever had. One day I walked into the schoolroom and saw my 16-year-old sitting next to the brooder box with the lid scooted just enough that her arm could fit down in the box. And the chick was just sitting there in her hand while she read her book. Sometimes they will bring it out and hold it while we watch movies at night. And it likes to be social with all of us since it doesn't have any other chickens to play with. So we went ahead and put another dozen eggs in the incubator, and we're hoping that in a few more weeks it will have some friends. But it has been such a funny little solitary, loud, chirping little chick. It's a whole different thing raising a batch of chicks versus just one. You know, they're just not really intended to be by themselves. So we've been giving it lots of extra attention, and it seems to be kind of settling in, and it's growing so fast. The kids kind of get tired of the noise and honestly the smell when we have chicks in the house. And we're all kind of, by the time they're old enough to move outside, we are all kind of ready for that. But it is really also just fun having them in the house, and they're so cute and cuddly and loud. Anyway, we've been enjoying this one lonely chicken. We haven't named it yet, but they're working on that. In our book clubs, the boys and I have recently started The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a book I have never read before, but my oldest son has, and I think it's his favorite book that he's ever read. So he's very excited that the rest of us got on board with that. That was his idea, that we read that one together. So he's very excited about that, and we are all very intrigued. I think we're only 4 chapters in, so it's still pretty new, but it was one that grabbed all of our attention from the beginning, which I really appreciate in a book. Sometimes the slower moving can be nice. I don't need it to be a fast-paced book, but I do like for it to draw me in right away, so I know, is this a book for me, or is this one I should just put down and find something else? So we're enjoying that. We're still reading together out loud at the tea table. So we just moved more slowly through the book that way. And so I feel like this book might take approximately the rest of my life because it's such a long book, but that's okay. It's not a rush. It's just that format is still working really well for us. So we read usually 2 chapters a week and then discuss a little bit. But we're really enjoying that. The girls and I started Christy by Catherine Marshall, and my dog Della is talking to herself. I'm sorry. She does that a lot. So the girls and I started reading Christy by Catherine Marshall. I think I have read this book 3 times before. 2 of my girls have read it before, but my middle daughter hadn't read it before. So we've been telling her for years that she would like it and she should read it. And that was the one they voted for book club, and she is absolutely loving it too. So we are, I think, 10 chapters into that one. We read 5 chapters a week and then discuss. And we have, it's kind of loose, but we have rules that you don't discuss the reading except at tea. Or not the reading for that week. We talk about the book elsewhere, but if there's something big that exciting or pivotal that's happened during that week's reading, we don't talk about it until we're all there together at tea. And so that's been really fun. Lots of good conversation material in that book. Lots of ugly, but also lots of beautiful. It's such a good story. So we are very much enjoying that. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to go back to having our tea outside at the picnic table pretty soon. Really, it was cool enough this week to do it, and we just didn't think about it. But that's one of our favorite things about autumn, is that the weather has cooled down enough that we can have tea outside. So now that I've been talking your ear off for several minutes, let's go ahead and talk about the knitting, which is really kind of the reason we're all here, right? I guess I'll begin with finished objects. I have 2 finished objects and 1 half finished object this time. But my first finished object is one that I wasn't even working on yet when I recorded last. So you haven't seen this at all, except maybe on Instagram. This is the crisp apple strudel mitten pattern, designed by Katy Carroll of Katinka Designs, I think is what it's called. This is such a beautiful cabled mitten. I love it. It's designed to kind of mimic the braided pastry of an apple strudel. I think it was originally designed for a kit from Little Skein and the Big Wool, I think. And I had my eye on this pattern for years. This is not a new pattern. And I knit myself a pair maybe 3 years ago. And I hadn't done cable at that point. I had not done cabling in a long time. And it felt like it grew kind of slowly for that first mitten. But then once I really got into a groove, I could not put it down. And I have knit at least 3 more pairs of this pattern since that first one. I just love it so much. And I just think that mittens are my favorite thing to knit. I knit a lot more socks and hats and other things, but I really think mittens are my favorite. I just love them. So this yarn is Quince & Co. Chickadee in the Kitty Wake colorway. It's a lovely heathered, I wanted to say marbled, heathered gray. I knit these for a friend for her birthday, and my knee-jerk thing is to order yarn when I'm going to make a gift. You know, to pick out yarn that's that person's favorite color and buy it specifically for them. But I've been really trying hard to work from stash, both to use up my stash and just to save some money on, you know, I have so much beautiful yarn. I should spend less and work with what I have more. So I was kind of frustrated because I had forgotten to order yarn for her birthday, and I was trying to figure out what to use. I knew I wanted to knit this pattern, but I went into my stash and I had the perfect amount to make another pair of these mittens, just left over from an old project, and I love the way they turned out. I think it's just so pretty. So very, very happy with these. I'll be giving them to my friend very soon, and I hope she loves them, because if not, then maybe I will keep them. I also wanted to show, while I have it out, these lovely mitten blockers. This was part of my Mother's Day gift this year. They're made by Simply Serving on Etsy, and I just think they're so nice. I love the detachable, adjustable thumb. So I've just got it tied on here with a piece of yarn, but that's so handy, and that you can put it on either side. So there's not really a right and left blocker. You put the thumb where you want it, and I just love them. So I had been telling my husband for a long time that I needed some mitten blockers, because it's so nice. Like, I have made so many mittens and I've never had one that blocked out this nicely. It really is so handy to have these. And I sent him links, and, you know, finally I was like, okay, this is the one I want. And he saved that link and got them for me for Mother's Day, and I have just been so happy with them. But this is the first project I've actually been able to block with them. I hadn't made any mittens since Mother's Day, so that was really fun, getting to use those and block these mittens out so beautifully. So I think, like I said, I hope she loves them. I think she'll love them. She's hinted to me before that she wanted some of these. So there's not really any danger that she won't appreciate them, but I kind of want to knit myself another pair because they're just so fun. My next finished object is a pair of socks for my son. You saw these in progress last time I recorded. There's so much brown around me, and there's a window behind the camera, so it's really hard for me to see. I think I probably say this every time. It's really hard for me to tell how well it shows. And then, you know, just trying to get it close enough that you can see the texture. But this is the Dot and Lines sock pattern by Dana Rae Makes on Instagram and Ravelry. That's her, I believe that's her name on Ravelry as well. This is part of the Textured Socks 3 Ways bundle that she put out. She didn't put it out very recently, I don't think. I got the pattern recently. Anyway, she has a few different pattern bundles that are, they're such a nice value because you get 3 different stitch patterns within the recipe for the one sock. So you can, you get 3 patterns for the price of 1, basically. So she had been working on a pair of this from this pattern recently, and I kept commenting how pretty they were and asked her what the pattern was. And I had intended to buy it, but then she gifted it to me because she knew I wanted to knit this pattern. So I'm excited to knit the other stitch patterns in that bundle, but this was the first thing. I could not wait to cast this on. So it's a lovely, it's got a seed stitch texture in there. It's very easy to read your knitting, very memorizable pattern, and it just knits up so nicely. So these will be for my oldest son. His feet are bigger than mine, so they're kind of bigger than the blockers, but that gives you an idea. I think he's going to really love them. My boys all like to wear their socks with dress clothes, like, to worship, or if we're going to town and dressing up a little bit. So they don't really wear their hand knit socks just around all the time, but that's pretty much the only dress socks they wear. They really do enjoy them. And it's nice. Their feet are not growing quite as quickly as they used to be. So I don't have to worry too much about them. They're not outgrowing them as quickly, but they're also not wearing them out too badly because they do take good care of them and they don't wear them just all the time. So I think all 3 of the boys are still able to wear their Christmas socks from last year. So that's nice. But he will enjoy having another pair in the rotation. So this, I don't think I said this. This yarn is Knit Picks Stroll in the Grizzly Heather colorway. As I mentioned, I've just been trying to spend less on yarn this year, and but I still have had to order some things because I don't have, I could knit socks for my girls for ages from what's in my stash, but I didn't have as many sock yarns that the boys would like. But Stroll is a really nice price point for knitting, especially kids socks. It is a little fuzzy, and it bothered me a little bit when I was working on this, but after seeing them finished, I don't think it's, I was afraid it was fuzzing up and gonna pill up too quickly, but I think it looks nice. So we'll see how it wears. It's been a while since I've made them socks in this yarn, but hopefully it will hold up well and he will enjoy them. So that's all my finished objects for this time, but I do have a half finished object. I've got 1 sock done that I finished this week. This is for my youngest son, who just turned 13, and I can't even believe it. This is also Knit Picks Stroll. This is the Blueberry Waffle Socks pattern, which you've probably all seen before. I don't know how well that's showing. Hopefully you got a good look. This Progress Keeper is from Little Bitty Delights. It's so cute. So this is, I think I sidetracked myself. This is Knit Picks Stroll, and this is the Aurora Heather colorway. This son loves green, and I love green, so it's fun just finding new different greens for him. That's not the only color I ever knit for him, but it is overwhelmingly his favorite and the thing I knit for him the most. And I really, really love this color. It's such a nice dark. So anyway, I've got 1 sock done, and then I guess we're moving into whips now. 1 sock done, and then that's what I've been working on as I've been talking today. Just a few inches of the cuff for the next sock. I really wanted something, this was supposed to be the project that went camping with me at the beginning of the month. And so I really wanted something that was textured. I didn't really want to do just a vanilla sock right then, but I wanted something that I could easily read without having to refer to the pattern. And the blueberry waffle socks are just such a great textured pattern. I think it's a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry. I think the Ravelry page links you to a blog, maybe. That sounds right. But I've made several in this pattern, and it's so squishy. It's so nice. And it's up very nicely. So I've really enjoyed working on this one, and I'm enjoying the progress on the second one. The yarn is so dark that I do, I need to be able to see well. So I was sitting in a restaurant yesterday working on the cuff of the second sock, and the lights were very dim in the restaurant, but there were windows everywhere, and so the light was coming in from all the sides, but there wasn't light above me, and I could not see to know where I was in the pattern. So I was joking that I need to just only take light colored yarns when I'm away. But it was really good for the car because there was lots of light in the car. So that's my first whip. I really only have 3 that are active right now, so I guess we'll move to the next one. I'm working on the Gilbert Blythe socks designed by Emily of Salt City Knits, and I am loving this. I'm actually knitting this for me, so it hasn't gotten as much attention lately. I intended this to be for my husband. Once I really got started on it, I kept saying, "Oh, this is so pretty. Don't you love this?" And finally he was like, "I mean, it's really nice, but I think you love it more than I do, so you should make it for you." So I did. I decided this is going to be mine now. So I am focusing more on the gift knits. So this has not gotten as much attention, but I really love it. So recently, Emily did a kit called Fall in Love in Avonlea. She actually had 2 separate kits. One was inspired by Gilbert, and the other was inspired by Anne. And so there was a different pattern and a different yarn and a different progress keeper for each kit. So like I said, I picked out the Gilbert kit, intending it to be for my husband, but I love it so much. So this is what I have so far. Oh, I meant to put this on, give me a second. I meant to put this on a blocker so it would show the cabling a little better. The progress keeper for the Gilbert kit was, of course it's upside down, is a carrot, which I think is perfect. And it's just this lovely cable pattern. It's really very simple. That's one of the things I love about cables. They look so impressive and intricate, but they're so fun and easy to make. But the offset cables, so the 3 columns are not all cabling at the same place. I think that's really fun. Yeah, I really love this. I think that this is probably enough leg for me. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the heel flap next. And I just think it's beautiful. So if you haven't seen Emily's, all of her patterns and all of her yarn are glorious, and I wish I could buy everything she dyes. But if you haven't seen the Anne and Gilbert patterns yet, you should definitely check them out. I intend to knit the Anne pattern for a friend of mine after I get my own kids' Christmas stuff done. That's my next gift I want to make. But I'm really, really, really happy with this. I think they're so pretty. So this will be what goes with me to the Green Gables party this afternoon, and I will work on this sock while we have tea and watch the movie. Of course, I have it in my Green Gables bag. I bought this from Love Sock Wool years ago, like 7 or 8 years ago probably. That's so nice. And look at that. A good interior fabric that coordinates with the exterior fabric just makes me happy. So I think I've said all I was going to say about that. But yeah, check out Emily's shop and her podcast and her Instagram. I love her. She and Deborah are so much fun. Okay, one more whip that I just got started. Well, I restarted it yesterday. I started it a couple of days ago and then ripped it out and started again last night. I am working on a pair of mittens for my youngest daughter. I'm using a pattern, but I'm altering it. And you can't see very much yet because there's just not much there yet. But I will show you what the pattern originally looks like. So several years ago, I knit myself a pair of these mittens called the Samoset mittens. And I've worn these for years, and I didn't worry with the thumb, but this is what it looks like. It's got a seed stitch panels on each side, and then the center panel that has a knit purl diamond texture. I've worn these for years, and I've knit at least 2 other pairs as gifts. There's a fingerless option. It's a really nice pattern. So my daughter really wanted a pair of mittens, and she wanted them to be green to match a hat that I made for her last Christmas. And just coincidentally, earlier this year, I knit mittens for both of my other daughters. And so this one, my youngest daughter, kept saying it was her turn. And she's been waiting very patiently. But, you know, the weather is starting to turn cooler, so I decided it was time to prioritize getting those mittens done for her. So she has changed her mind a couple of different times on what exactly she wanted it to look like. But she finally decided that she wants this basic mitten pattern, but she wants it to have the cable, braided cable, from the hat I made her last year. And again, this is so dark, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's a really nice braided cable. Very simple cable. It's beautiful. And she asked for yarn to match the hat. And then she decided she wanted the cable to match the hat cable. So I think I've got it worked out so that it's the way I want it to be. But I kept the seed stitch on each side and just plugged in that cable in the center. So I had to change the numbers just a tiny bit to make that work because of the diamond pattern on the original mitten pattern needed a different number of stitches. So I changed that just a tiny bit and started on the cable this morning, and I think it's going to be really nice. She's very excited, so we'll see how it turns out. But it's, again, I love making mittens, so so I'm having fun with this. And one of the things, I usually prefer fingering weight yarn. DK is my other favorite, but usually I knit with fingering weight. And so something that's worsted, which is what this is, feels uncomfortable to knit with all the time. But when I knit a mitten in DK or worsted, it just knits up so fast. And I think that's fun just to see that progress more quickly than is typical with a sock. So this yarn is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted in the Aurora Heather colorway. So it's the same as the socks, same colorway as the socks I'm making for my son. And I just cast this on not long before bedtime last night, and I'm already that far along, so I feel like this will be a pretty quick project. Maybe I'll focus on that this weekend. We'll see. So that's what I've got going right now. Let me check my show notes because I know I had other things I was going to mention. Oh, yes. So those are my finished objects and my current whips, but you know, you're never just thinking about what you're currently working on. You're also thinking about what you're going to do next, right? So I always have knitting plans. And sometimes, like, I've got ideas, that I know will be months down the road. Um, I've got gifts that I'm planning for next year already. Um, my eldest daughter's birthday is in January, so I have to be thinking about her birthday at the same time that I'm thinking about Christmas. um, so I've got all these plans, but there's always something new coming to the big, like to number one in the queue. So I've been thinking this year about whether or not I want to do some kind of Advent project. I'm not going to have an Advent calendar this year, um, but I also felt like maybe I wanted to knit on something special through December just because that's fun, you know? Um, I prefer to have all the kids' gifts finished by December 1st so that I'm not trying to. There have been years when I have been working on their socks through December, and I felt like I was spending a lot more time closed up in a separate room from all of them. Um, we spend a lot of our time together, but it's very easy for it to not be intentional and not really be together. And, I was really determined to get these socks all finished in time for Christmas. And I spent a lot of time in a different room, like if they're watching Christmas movies or doing something fun. And I would be like, okay, well, I have to go in there for a while now. And that's just not really what I wanted their memories of December to be. So the last few years, that's been my goal. And usually it works pretty well. This year it might be a little harder, but I think I'm on track at this point. The knitting mojo is coming back stronger after suffering for a few weeks when our dog was sick. So anyway, my point is, I try not to be knitting on their gifts in December. And so it is fun to have something seasonal to knit on while we're watching Christmas movies or whatever we're doing. So I've been debating about whether, just thinking about, do I want to knit something that's an Advent project, or do I just want to go on to the next thing on my want to knit list? And just a couple of days ago, I saw a new design on Instagram. Katy of Songbird Handmade on Instagram posted this picture of a new sock design that she is about to be releasing. It's called the Kevin McAllister socks, and it is a textured pattern that is designed to kind of imitate Kevin's textured knit sweater that he wears in the movie Home Alone. And zooming in and looking at the picture, I could tell it's several different sections, and I think that might be a really fun Advent project, very doable. Just to, do a section a day. I think, I just saw one picture. I don't have the pattern. The pattern's not released yet. But it looked like you could more or less divide it up into a section a day and have 24 or 25 sections. I wasn't certain. Because it's just little sections of texture all down the leg and foot of the sock. So that's something I want to look into further when the pattern is released. I think she said she's going to release it on November 2nd. So I'll definitely be checking that out. And I think that sounds like a lot of fun. Like I said, just something that's doable and seasonal, but not something that's going to just take hours and hours and hours and hours, because December is pretty busy. And because by then I'll be working on birthday gifts. Let me see. There was something else. Oh yeah. So I'm working on the Christmas socks for the kids, and this pair that I'm working on is the third one out of 6. So that's not too shabby. So that's most of my attention right now. But the girls' socks they all like shorties, and so once I get the boys' socks with those 10-inch legs and those man feet done, then the girls' socks will be easy. So then I've got some plans for my daughter's birthday, and I have a few small friend gifts I'd like to make if I have time. But after Christmas, my knitting group has decided on a small shawlette kind of pattern that we're all going to make the same pattern but in different yarns. So my knitting group is made up of 4 or 5 people that are regulars, and then a few that come occasionally as they can. It started as a class. I started it as a class, and we just meet at our church fellowship hall once a month. And there were a lot of people at that first class. I don't know, 10 or 12 people that wanted to learn to knit. And it was a class. You know, I did a little bit of demonstrated a little bit of knitting with different techniques and talked about the basics of knitting, and then basically spent the next 2 hours going around the room helping each person cast on. So the group now is not as big as that. Some of the people have moved away. Some just weren't interested in knitting after that initial lesson. But it has become such a fun group of friends. We sit and knit together for 2 hours once a month. It's very laid back, very casual. But one of our members of our group had the idea. She was just kind of joking about how we need to wear our hand knits to church more and get more people to come join us at knit night. And so that conversation just kind of evolved into we should all wear a matching shawl. So we decided that instead of all agreeing on the same color, because, you know, we have different colorings and different favorites and that kind of thing, we're all going to knit the same pattern and all in different colors. And so I'm currently trying to figure out which yarn to use. I have a few different skeins in my stash that would be good options. I have been knitting, I think, longer than anybody else in the group, and I have taught 3 of our regulars to knit. So some of them are not as confident with new techniques and different design elements. So we're going very simple, and I think it's going to be so much fun. So that's something I'm excited for after the holidays. And I'm just really enjoying sharing after knitting for years without having any in-person knitting friends who really got it. It's been really fun to have this group and to see how excited they are about their knitting. I think that's all I had planned on talking about today. I actually always have something that I forget. There's always something that I think later, oh, I should have mentioned that. It's just how it is. But I usually kind of wrap up my episodes with talking about something good that I've been enjoying lately. Often that's been a product, usually knitting related product, but not exclusively a physical thing. Sometimes, I've shared knitting tools. Sometimes I've shared books that I'm enjoying. But this time, as I was trying to think of what good thing do I want to share today, I just was overwhelmed with gratitude that, as I've mentioned, things have been hard here. It's been a hard year for our homestead, really, but the last few weeks, losing our dog and canceling our trip, there's been a lot of difficult emotions, a lot of big things going on in the world. It's a lot, and it's easy to get bogged down in the things we don't have and the things that are not going right and the things that we don't want to be the way they are, and to miss how blessed we really, really are. So I'm just trying to get out of that mindset, that negative, sad, and don't get me wrong, it's not wrong to be sad. It's not wrong to feel the heavy feelings and to feel all that weight that is present in the world, but I don't want to live in that space. So I've just been really focusing on gratitude lately and just noticing the things that we do have and the blessings that are showered on us every day. Right now it's autumn, and I love autumn, and the weather is so lovely after a very hot summer. It's been so nice to have the windows open and wear long sleeves and pull some of my knitwear out that I haven't worn in months. I have knitting. I always have yarn and needles. If I couldn't shop, couldn't spend any money, couldn't access the internet to get more yarn, I could knit for a while on what I have in my stash. And it's always there. It's always so soothing. It's always available to me. And I'm thankful for that. There are so many things to be thankful for. So many ways that we've always had everything we need and abundantly more. And so while I started the episode with, kind of talking about some hard things and some sad things, I really want to just wrap up with acknowledging how blessed I still am, how blessed we are, and how thankful I am to live the life that I have and have the friends and family that I have. And I am so thankful for this community that shares my love of knitting and fiber and making things. And just, there's so much to be thankful for. And I am so grateful. I hope that you are all doing well. I hope that you are having a lovely fall or whatever season you're in if you don't live in this hemisphere. I hope to hear from you soon, and I hope to be back with you again in 2 weeks. We'll see how that goes. But until then, have so much fun with your making, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.